The Kim dynasty has long been defined by a strict male-dominated order. In a system where power was historically reserved for men from the founding leader through successive generations, the emergence of a high-profile female figure was both unexpected and unprecedented. In recent years, one woman in particular began to attract significant attention within this tightly controlled regime. Born into a dynasty steeped in tradition and secrecy, she swiftly became known as the closest aide to the supreme leader, frequently seen by his side during high-level meetings and diplomatic engagements. Her role extended beyond simple advisory duties. She served as a key communicator of official policy and the voice of the leadership in public addresses. Her name is Kim Yo-jong. As the daughter of the former leader and the younger sister of the current supreme leader, her trajectory within the regime has been as intriguing as it is complex. From her early days navigating the corridors of the ruling party to her eventual ascent as a critical part of the inner circle, her life story reveals not only the workings of an authoritarian state but also the persistent influence of historical and cultural traditions on modern political power. In traditional North Korean society, as in many other East Asian cultures, the vestiges of a long-held Confucian worldview continue to shape perceptions of gender and hierarchy. Historically, notions of male supremacy and the subordination of women were deeply embedded in the culture. In ancient Korea, Confucian values dictated strict social roles and placed great emphasis on lineage, inheritance, and the continuity of male authority. Even when a woman was born into a prestigious family, her prospects for political power were limited by custom and convention. This historical backdrop makes the rise of Kim Yo-jong all the more remarkable, as she navigated a system designed to favor male heirs and maintain rigid gender hierarchies. Born in 1988, Kim Yo-jong entered a world where her family's legacy was both an immense privilege and a heavy burden. Her mother, a woman whose background was considered less than ideal by traditional standards, had once struggled to gain acceptance within the ruling circles. Despite this, her gentle demeanor and striking presence eventually earned her a prominent place in the leader's inner circle. In accordance with the long-held maxim that the child follows the mother, her three siblings saw their fortunes rise following their mother's ascension. Yet, as a girl in a society that historically places little emphasis on the political potential of women, Kim Yo-jong was initially sidelined when it came to considerations of succession and leadership. Her early years were spent in relative obscurity at the center of Pyongyang's elite social circles. While her two older brothers were hailed as the future generals of the regime, destined to inherit a mantle of martial prowess and authority, Kim Yo-jong was treated as an appendage-beloved daughter with little expectation of wielding independent power. The affectionate title of princess, in this context, was an endearing term that carried no implications of political influence or leadership potential. Her early exclusion from the succession line was emblematic of a broader cultural tradition that placed a premium on male authority and frequently relegated women to secondary roles. However, even as these early circumstances might have predicted a life of quiet acceptance of subordinate status, Kim Yo-jong's personal qualities set her apart. Known for her exceptional discipline, obedience, and organizational skills, she demonstrated an early aptitude for leadership that would not go unnoticed by the regime's top decision-makers. Over time, her demeanor and capabilities caught the attention of her older brother, the current supreme leader. This recognition led to her gradual introduction into the political arena, move that signaled a departure from the strict gender conventions that had long defined the dynasty. During the mid-1990s, a pivotal period in the lives of many Kim family members, the siblings were sent abroad for education. Kim Yo-jong spent a brief period in Switzerland, where she encountered a world markedly different from the regimented society of North Korea. Although her stay abroad was relatively short, the experience allowed her to develop a keen awareness of international cultures and modern political systems. Despite the influence of Western ideas, her return to North Korea at the age of 13 marked the beginning of an intensive re-education under the regime's unique brand of socialist doctrine. In that environment, she was molded not by the values of the capitalist West but by a rigid curriculum designed to reinforce the ideological foundations of the ruling party. Upon her return, Kim Yo-jong was gradually drawn into the intricacies of state politics. By her late teens, she had secured a position within her brother's personal officier role that required impeccable loyalty and a keen sense of political calculation. In this capacity, she accompanied him on official trips and became intimately involved in the formulation and dissemination of state propaganda. The propaganda apparatus of the Kim dynasty is a powerful institution, charged with promoting the cult of personality surrounding the supreme leader and ensuring that every public statement aligns with the government's ideological line. Within this context, Kim Yo-jong's responsibilities were not merely administrative, they involved crafting messages broadcast to millions both at home and abroad. Her early forays into politics were marked by a steady rise in responsibility. With each public appearance, she began to embody the voice and image of the regime. It was through these highly visible roles that the media started to refer to her as one of the most influential women in North Korean history. Her presence was not confined to behind-the-scenes meetings. She frequently appeared on television, delivering speeches carefully scripted to inspire loyalty and national pride. Her style was measured and controlled, with every sentence crafted to avoid any hint of personal opinion or deviation from the official narrative. In every instance, her role was to echo and amplify the supreme leader's directives, reinforcing the centralized control that has long characterized the Kim regime. Yet, despite her apparent prominence, the delicate balance of power within the Kim dynasty has always been subject to rapid change. In one notable episode during a state visit to Russia, the expected display of solidarity between the supreme leader and his sister did not occur as it had in previous outings. The usual images of Kim Yo-jong standing closely by his side were noticeably absent from official reports, replaced instead by shots of lower-ranking officials. This deviation from tradition spurred widespread curiosity among observers and raised questions about her current standing within the regime. Speculation abounded: was her influence waning? Or was this merely a temporary adjustment in a long-standing strategy of careful image management? The answer, as history has often shown, lies in the complex interplay of personal relationships and institutional power within the Kim dynasty. At its core, the power structure in North Korea is a family affair, governed by an intricate set of rules and traditions that frequently defy modern political analysis. In this system, personal relationship, sibling bonds, maternal legacies, and the influence of extended family members play a crucial role in shaping political fortunes. For Kim Yo-jong, her relationship with her older brother has been both a source of empowerment and a constant reminder of her secondary status in a male-dominated hierarchy. Her rise to prominence must be understood against the backdrop of North Korea's enduring feudal logic. When the state is examined not as a modern nation but as a continuation of a medieval dynasty, the actions of its leaders assume a different character, one steeped in ritual, symbolism, and an almost preternatural adherence to tradition. The Kim family's approach to governance often echoes practices from bygone eras, where power was as much about performance as it was about policy. In this context, Kim Yo-jong's public appearances, her carefully measured speech, and her role in managing the regime's image were all parts of a larger drama designed to legitimize the authority of the ruling family. The historical narrative of the Kim dynasty is replete with examples of women who, despite their proximity to power, were rarely entrusted with the reins of governance. In many traditional dynasties, powerful women, while often influential behind the scenes, were systematically excluded from formal positions of authority. Their roles were confined to being supportive figures whose primary function was to secure the succession of the male heir. Kim Yo-jong's early exclusion from the succession line reflected this deeply ingrained cultural norm. Even as her brothers were groomed to assume the mantle of leadership, she was largely relegated to a supportive role, a position that allowed her to remain close to the center of power without directly challenging the established order. Over time, however, her personal attributes and unwavering loyalty began to earn her a more prominent place within the regime. Much of this transformation can be attributed to her mother's enduring influence. Despite the initial disadvantages of her birth, her mother eventually won over the supreme lead heir development, that played a crucial role in shaping Kim Yo-jong's future. The old maxim that the child follows the mother took on a concrete meaning in the context of the Kim dynasty. With her mother's rise, the status of her siblings improved, and her own position, once marginal, began to be reevaluated. This shift was not sudden. It resulted from years of meticulous grooming and careful positioning within the labyrinthine structures of the North Korean state. By the time Kim Yo-jong reached her early 20s, she had firmly established herself as a trusted aide to the supreme leader. Her daily routines often involved accompanying him on official trips, attending high-level meetings, and ensuring that messaging from the top echelon was both consistent and compelling. Photographs and video footage of these moments became iconic, widely circulated by state media to demonstrate the close bond between the siblings. In one frequently cited instance, during a series of commemorative military parades marking the 75th anniversary of the regime's founding, the supreme leader was depicted seated prominently in a central viewing box, exuding authority and command. In stark contrast, Kim Yo-jong appeared at the periphery, a subtle yet unmistakable indication of the roles each was expected to play within the state apparatus. Her position as a propagandist was not merely symbolic. The propaganda department of the ruling party is a vital institution within North Korea, responsible for controlling the flow of information and maintaining the personality cult that underpins the entire political system. In this role, Kim Yo-jong was charged with conveying messages designed to bolster the regime's image and suppress any dissenting voices. Her speeches were meticulously crafted to reflect the official line, often employing a vocabulary that was both aggressive and uncompromising when referring to external adversaries. In her addresses, terms conveying hostility towards South Korea and the United States were used with precision, intended to evoke a sense of national unity against perceived external threats. At the same time, her language was carefully calibrated to avoid any overt criticism that might destabilize internal dynamics. The evolution of her public persona can also be traced through her participation in a series of meticulously orchestrated public events. One of the most striking aspects of her career was her involvement in events laden with historical and symbolic significance. For instance, images of Kim Yo-jong on horseback emerged as particularly powerful symbols. In North Korean culture, the white horse is not merely an animal, it is a potent emblem of legitimacy, strength, and the divine right to rule. The historical narrative of the Kim dynasty is interwoven with mythic tales of heroic cavalry charges and legendary battles. Thus, when the supreme leader and his sister were photographed riding white horses together, it was seen as a deliberate invocation of the family's storied past, a reminder of the continuity between the historical and the contemporary. Such images were carefully staged to communicate that the bloodline of the ruling family remained as vibrant and indomitable as ever. Yet, as the years passed, subtle shifts began to emerge in the balance of power. In one notable incident during a high-profile visit spanning multiple international engagements, Kim Yo-jong's presence in official media was noticeably diminished. While her brother continued to receive full coverage, appearing in carefully composed shots that underscored his authority, the images of Kim Yo-jong were conspicuously sparse. At one significant state event commemorating national military achievements, even lower-ranking officials appeared more frequently in the visual record than she did. Such deviations sparked a flurry of speculation. Analysts wondered whether this was an indication of internal power realignments or perhaps a temporary setback in her carefully constructed public persona. The internal dynamics of the Kim dynasty have always been complex. Power is not merely a matter of official titles or public appearances, it is also a function of intricate personal relationships and long-standing traditions. Within the family, bonds between siblings and the influence of senior relatives play a crucial role in determining who ultimately wields authority. In the case of Kim Yo-jong, her position has often been defined by her close proximity to the supreme lead-era relationship that has served both as a source of empowerment and as a constant reminder of her subordinate status in a traditionally male-dominated hierarchy. As the regime evolved in the new millennium, the challenges it faced on the international stage began to mount. North Korea's pursuit of nuclear capabilities had long been a cornerstone of its national strategy, viewed as essential for ensuring the survival of the dynasty against external pressures. By the time the current supreme leader assumed power, the pace of nuclear experimentation had accelerated dramatically. Within a few short years, North Korea had conducted multiple nuclear tests, each serving as both a demonstration of military prowess and a stark reminder of the regime's determination to maintain its independence. Against this backdrop of escalating tension, the roles of key figures within the regime assumed renewed significance. Kim Yo-jong, whose responsibilities included managing the regime's propaganda apparatus, became central to communicating these developments both domestically and internationally. In the face of mounting external pressures including sanctions imposed by the United States and other international bodies, North Korea found itself increasingly isolated. The supreme leader's response was to consolidate power further by tightening his grip on both the military and the political institutions that underpinned the state. As part of this strategy, close aides and trusted family members were elevated to positions of key responsibility. During this period, Kim Yo-jong's portfolio expanded to include oversight not only of propaganda but also of logistics and security. This multifaceted role positioned her as an indispensable figure in the day-to-day operations of the regime, one who had to navigate a labyrinth of internal rivalries and external challenges. At the same time, the supreme leader was keenly aware of the need to project strength and continuity in the face of persistent international hostility. One method he employed was to stage highly symbolic diplomatic engagements that would convey both defiance and a willingness to engage with potential adversaries. For instance, when relations with South Korea reached a particularly tense juncture, the supreme leader opted to open a channel of dialogue not through direct personal contact, but by deploying his trusted sister as an emissary. This move was significant on multiple levels. It demonstrated a calculated willingness to engage in diplomacy while reinforcing the message that any negotiations would be conducted strictly on terms set by the ruling family. Kim Yo-jong, stepping into a role never before assigned to a woman in North Korean history, became the face of this delicate balancing act. Her task was to signal a softening of the regime's posture, even as it remained steadfast in its core objectives. A particularly memorable episode occurred during an international sporting event held in South Korea. The opening ceremony of the Winter Games was marked by a series of carefully choreographed moments intended to symbolize reconciliation and mutual respect between the two Koreas. In a scene that captured the attention of both domestic and international media, Kim Yo-jong was photographed stepping off a private plane at an international airport. Clad in a crisply tailored uniform, she exuded the poise and professionalism expected of someone representing the supreme leader. Her measured smile and deliberate gestures were widely interpreted as emblematic of a new era in North Korean diplomacy, a phase characterized on the surface by a willingness to engage and a readiness to bridge long-standing divides. Yet even as these high-profile diplomatic missions unfolded, an undercurrent of internal tension persisted within the regime. The delicate balance of power within the Kim dynasty meant that every public gesture was laden with hidden meanings and unspoken messages. For instance, during a state banquet hosted by the supreme leader, observers scrutinized Kim Yo-jong's seating arrangement and body language. While her brother was accorded the central position of honor, she was relegated to a more peripheral spot, a subtle yet unmistakable reminder of her subordinate role within the established hierarchy. Such moments, though seemingly minor, offered important clues about the inner workings of a regime governed by archaic and often inscrutable rules. The symbolism of these gestures extended even to the choice of vehicles and accessories. In a series of widely circulated photographs, the supreme leader was seen riding a pristine white horse, a potent symbol of purity, legitimacy, and the storied heritage of the Kim family. The white horse held a special place in the cultural imagination of the regime, evoking memories of ancient battles and mythic origins. When Kim Yo-jong was pictured alongside her brother on a similar steed, the imagery was carefully calibrated to suggest a bond of shared destiny and mutual support. Yet, as subsequent events revealed, the visual narrative was not always consistent. In later appearances, her image was conspicuously absent from carefully staged tableaus featuring the supreme leader and other key figures. Many interpreted the omission of Kim Yo-jong's image as a deliberate signal message that the dynamics within the inner circle were shifting in ways that might have long-term implications for the balance of power. Over the ensuing months and years, a series of events underscored the precarious nature of power within the regime. A number of high-ranking officials were suddenly removed from their positions in what appeared to be a ruthless consolidation of authority by the supreme leader. Among these was a prominent figure whose downfall was linked, at least in part, to internal disagreements over the direction of the state's propaganda efforts. As the regime recalibrated its approach to both domestic messaging and international diplomacy, Kim Yo-jong found herself at the center of a complex web of intrigue and rivalry. Her responsibilities expanded, but so did the scrutiny under which she operated. Every public statement and every carefully rehearsed gesture was dissected by analysts striving to read between the lines of a political drama with far-reaching consequences for the regime's future. Within this context, the evolution of her public image became a subject of intense interest and debate. Some observers speculated that her growing influence might eventually position her as a potential successor to her broth-era notion that had rarely been entertained in previous generations of the Kim dynasty. The possibility of a female leader in North Korea would represent a dramatic break from tradition, a shift with profound implications both domestically and internationally. However, even as such theories circulated widely in the media and among analysts, the internal logic of the regime remained firmly anchored in long-established customs. The established rules of succession and the intricate balance of power within the Kim family made it highly unlikely that any single individual, regardless of talent or ambition, could unilaterally alter the course of history. As the international landscape continued to evolve, pressures facing the regime grew ever more acute. North Korea's rapid progression in its nuclear and missile programs led to a series of escalating sanctions from the United States and its allies. In response, the supreme leader took increasingly bold steps to assert his authority and reassert the legitimacy of the regime. High-profile diplomatic engagements were staged, often involving a carefully orchestrated interplay of symbolism and rhetoric designed to convey both defiance and a willingness to negotiate under strictly defined conditions. In these moments, Kim Yo-jong's role as the chief propagandist and spokesperson became even more critical. Her speeches, delivered in a tone that was both measured and unyielding, were crafted to reinforce the image of a strong, unified leadership that would not be cowed by external pressures. Even as the state apparatus mobilized to project strength, persistent signs of internal fragility remained. The intricate relationships that defined the Kim dynasty were subject to constant negotiation and rebalancing. In one telling instance, a series of images emerged in which the supreme leader was seen riding a white horse accompanied by a figure whose identity had once been associated with the public face of the regime's diplomatic outreach. In these images, the composition was arranged to emphasize the supreme leader's central role, while the accompanying figure, once seen as a rising star within the regime, appeared increasingly marginalized. Subsequent media coverage confirmed that this individual had gradually been sidelined, with her appearances reduced and her public role diminished. The timing of these developments coincided with a broader reorientation of state policy, one that placed greater emphasis on consolidating power among a select group of loyalists. The subtle shift in public representation was emblematic of deeper currents within the leadership, pointing toward a reassertion of traditional power structures and the continued dominance of a strictly controlled hierarchy. Amid these internal shifts, external pressures continued to mount. In 2020, North Korea faced renewed international isolation as the global political climate grew increasingly polarized. The regime's long-standing reliance on nuclear capabilities as a guarantor of its sovereignty was brought into sharp focus, as Western powers pressed for more stringent measures and harsher sanctions. In this climate, the supreme leader's public posture became ever more defiant, and the regime's internal messaging grew increasingly combative. Kim Yo-jong, whose role had once been associated with a more moderate and conciliatory approach to diplomacy, found herself caught between the need to project strength and the imperative to maintain a semblance of unity within the leadership. In a series of televised addresses, she continued to deliver speeches replete with aggressive rhetoric aimed at external adversaries, yet there was an undercurrent of restraint or recognition that in the volatile world of North Korean politics, every word had the potential to tip the balance between stability and chaos. One notable episode in 2020 further highlighted the precarious nature of her position. In response to reports of anti-regime activities involving the use of foreign balloons to distribute leaflets, she issued a stern warning that such acts would be met with decisive action. In her statement, she declared that any attempts to undermine the state's authority would result in the destruction of key symbols of inter-Korean cooperation, a threat that, while couched in the language of retribution, also underscored the regime's determination to preserve its long-standing narrative of national unity. This incident served as a stark reminder that the power wielded by Kim Yo-jong, however extensive it might have seemed at times, was ultimately derived from and circumscribed by the will of the supreme leader. Throughout these developments, the fate of Kim Yo-jong has been inextricably linked to the fortunes of the ruling family. In a system where personal ambition is continually subordinated to the imperatives of dynastic survival, her role has always been that of a loyal executor, a figure expected to serve as an extension of the supreme leader's authority rather than as an independent source of power. The intricate rituals and protocols governing the public sphere in North Korea leave little room for deviation. Every appearance and every carefully measured gesture serves as a reminder that power in this context is not something that can be claimed or contested by personal ambition alone. It is a gift that must be continuously reaffirmed through a series of symbolic acts and controlled displays. As the regime moves forward into an uncertain future, the legacy of the Kim dynasty remains a subject of intense scrutiny, both within and beyond its borders. The historical patterns that have long defined the operation of this uniquely insular state continue to assert themselves, even as new challenges emerge in a rapidly changing world. In the case of Kim Yo-jong, her journey from relative obscurity to a position of considerable influence is emblematic of the complexities inherent in maintaining power within a system steeped in tradition and forced to confront the realities of modern geopolitics. The unfolding story of the Kim family is not merely a chronicle of individual ambition or familial loyalty, it is a narrative that encapsulates broader tensions between tradition and modernity, between an old feudal order and the demands of a globalized world. For decades, North Korea has managed to survive and even thrive amid an array of external pressures, drawing on the strength of its cultural heritage and the unyielding authority of its ruling dynasty. In this context, every public appearance and every carefully staged photograph is imbued with layers of meaning that extend far beyond immediate political circumstances. Looking back over the course of her career, Kim Yo-jong's evolution can be seen as a microcosm of broader transformations within the regime. In her early years, she was a symbol of a break from tradition, a woman emerging in a system long defined by male dominance. Over time, however, the realities of the political structure reasserted themselves. The very traits that had once set her apart, her intelligence, meticulous attention to detail, and loyalty became both her greatest assets and her most inescapable constraints. In a regime where power is a family inheritance and every role is circumscribed by centuries-old traditions, there is little room for individual deviation. Her public role, therefore, has always been inextricably linked to the fortunes of the ruling family, with every action subject to the imperatives of dynastic continuity. As external pressures mounted and internal adjustments continued, the future of the regime remained shrouded in uncertainty. The international community watched closely as North Korea navigated a precarious path between defiance and engagement, between the demands of modern diplomacy and the rigid imperatives of its historical legacy. For Kim Yo-jong, every public statement and carefully choreographed appearance became a high-stakes performance, a balancing act reconciling the demands of national security with the need to project an image of stability and continuity. Ultimately, the story of Kim Yo-jong is not merely about one individual's rise and challenges within an authoritarian regime, it is a reflection of the enduring power of tradition, the complex interplay of familial loyalty and political ambition, and the relentless pressures that shape the destiny of a dynasty. Her experiences illustrate the paradoxes at the heart of North Korea's political system, a system in which the past and present are inextricably linked, and where every act of leadership serves as both a tribute to history and a step into an uncertain future. The narrative of the Kim dynasty, with its rich tapestry of symbols, rituals, and carefully managed images, continues to evolve. The delicate balance of power, maintained through an intricate interplay of personal relationships and state institutions, remains one of the most closely guarded secrets of modern geopolitics. In this environment, Kim Yo-jong's role as both a loyal aide and a potential catalyst for future change serves as a powerful reminder of the enduring complexities of dynastic rule. Her journey underscores that in a system where authority is passed down through generations with an almost sacred reverence for tradition, even the most remarkable individuals must ultimately conform to the rules that have governed their world for centuries. In a regime where the display of power is as much about symbolism as it is about policy, every carefully calculated gesture, whether a measured smile at a state dinner, the deliberate choice of attire for a diplomatic mission, or the omission of a once prominent figure from a carefully staged public image, carries with it the weight of history and the expectations of a people bound by tradition. As the Kim dynasty continues to navigate the treacherous waters of domestic politics and international diplomacy, the lessons of the past remain a constant guide even as new challenges force a re-evaluation of old practices. The evolution of Kim Yo-jong's public role reflects the enduring tension between innovation and tradition, between the desire to project a modern, engaged image and the unyielding pull of historical precedent. Her story, marked by moments of both bold initiative and cautious retrenchment, encapsulates the essence of a regime that has long struggled to reconcile its ancient cultural roots with the demands of a rapidly changing world. It is a story that continues to unfold, a narrative in which every chapter is imbued with the timeless drama that has defined the rise and fall of empires throughout history. Ultimately, the trajectory of Kim Yo-jong and the shifting dynamics within the Kim dynasty illustrate a broader truth about power in North Korea. The regime's resilience is not founded on the charisma of a single leader, but rather on a complex web of relationships, symbols, and traditions meticulously cultivated over decades. In this system, even the most influential figures are bound by the same rules that have guided the dynasty since its inception, a legacy of continuity, ritual, and an unwavering commitment to maintaining the status quo. The narrative unfolding in North Korea is one of constant adaptation amid unchanging traditions. As the regime confronts new challenges from both within and outside its borders, it must continually reassert its authority through a series of calculated public gestures and carefully managed displays of power. Kim Yo-jong's role in this process, once heralded as a harbinger of change and the potential for a new era of leadership, remains a potent reminder of the enduring influence of history. Even as external pressures of international sanctions, nuclear brinkmanship, and diplomatic isolation mount, the internal logic of the dynasty remains rooted in a past that continues to shape every aspect of state policy. In conclusion, the evolution of Kim Yo-jong's role within the Kim dynasty encapsulates the paradox of a regime steeped in ancient traditions, yet compelled to confront modern challenges. Her rise, her moments of prominence followed by recalibrations in public representation, and the subtle signals embedded in every gesture serve as a testament to the intricate interplay between personal ambition, dynastic loyalty, and the immutable rules of tradition. The unfolding narrative of North Korea's leadership stands as a compelling case study in the complexities of authoritarian rule, reflecting the enduring strength of a system built on historical continuity and modern strategic necessity. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our channel.